The afternoon light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting soft shadows across the living room. I sank deeper into the couch, savoring the quiet that enveloped my home. My husband had left for a week-long business trip, and for the first time in ages, I felt a sense of liberation. The absence of his presence allowed me to breathe freely, to indulge in my own thoughts without interruption. I could finally enjoy a cup of coffee without someone asking about dinner plans or discussing work. Yet, as I sipped my drink, an unsettling weight settled in my chest. The stillness of the house echoed back memories of our predictable life together, dinner at 6, weekends filled with chores and errands. I had grown accustomed to this rhythm, but it felt increasingly hollow. The walls around me were adorned with photographs of happier times, yet they now seemed like ghosts from a past life. A sigh escaped my lips as I pondered over the years spent in this comfortable yet unfulfilling marriage. Just then, a knock at the door jolted me from my reverie. It was unexpected. Most neighbors would text or call before dropping by. Curiosity piqued, I set my mug down and approached the door cautiously. Peering through the peephole revealed my neighbor standing there, Mark, a man in his 40s who had moved in next door a few months ago. He was known for his friendly demeanor and penchant for gardening. We'd exchanged pleasantries but never ventured beyond small talk. I opened the door slightly, just enough to greet him without fully inviting him in. "Hey, Mark," I said with a hint of surprise. "Hi, Ellie. Sorry to bother you," he replied with an apologetic smile. "I was wondering if you could spare a cup of sugar? I'm trying out a new recipe." His request seemed innocent enough, yet something about it stirred an unexpected thrill within me. The casual nature of our conversation felt like an opening, a crack in the wall surrounding my solitude. I nodded slowly and stepped aside to let him enter while I retrieved the sugar from the kitchen. As I poured sugar into a small bowl, Mark leaned against the counter casually, his presence filling the space with warmth that contrasted sharply with my solitude. We chatted briefly about our respective weekends. He mentioned his plans to tackle some landscaping work while I offered vague responses about enjoying some peace at home. "Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions?" he asked suddenly, catching me off guard. I paused mid-sentence as his words hung in the air between us like an uninvited guest. "Sometimes," I admitted quietly before forcing a smile to mask my vulnerability. Our eyes met for just a moment longer than necessary, a flicker of something unspoken passed between us before he broke away and reached for the bowl of sugar resting on the counter. "Thanks for this," he said softly, almost hesitantly. As he turned to leave, our fingers brushed against each other briefly, a fleeting touch that sent an unexpected jolt through me. My heart raced as he stepped back toward the door but paused again before leaving. "Ellie," he said softly, looking back at me with an intensity that made my breath catch in my throat. "I hope you don't mind if we chat more often." Before I could respond or even fully process what was happening, he stepped outside and closed the door behind him gently. I stood there in stunned silence for what felt like hours after he left, my heart pounding wildly against my ribcage as confusion washed over me like cold water. What had just happened? A simple exchange had turned into something that left me questioning everything about myself and my life choices. The air felt charged somehow now that Mark was gone. It lingered heavily around me as if something significant had shifted within those few minutes we shared together. Was it merely loneliness talking? Or was there more beneath this newfound connection? With trembling hands, I reached for my coffee cup again but found it empty, just like so many aspects of my life lately, lacking substance and warmth amid familiarity. A glance out of the window revealed Mark walking back towards his house. He looked back once more before disappearing inside his front door, the act feeling both mundane yet monumental at once. I returned to sit on my couch but found no comfort there anymore. Instead of solace from solitude came unease from awakening desires long buried beneath years of routine existence. The unlocked door now symbolizing not just an entryway but possibilities waiting just beyond reach. As evening descended outside and shadows danced along familiar walls within this cozy space once filled with laughter and love now held only echoes, my mind raced with questions unanswered and paths unexplored. The knock on that door had awakened something deep inside me, hope mingled with fear tangled together like vines creeping up an old fence, and suddenly everything felt different than it had mere moments ago as uncertainty hung heavily in every breath taken thereafter. I stood there, the door slightly ajar, feeling the weight of his presence. The scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the tension that crackled between us. I hesitated, my heart racing. "Would you like to come in for a moment?" I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over my living room filled with familiar comforts, worn books on the shelf and a half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. I felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with guilt as he settled into a chair across from me. The silence stretched thin, punctuated only by the ticking clock on the wall. "Do you want some coffee?" I asked, trying to break the tension. He nodded, and I busied myself in the kitchen, pouring 2 steaming mugs. As I turned to face him again, he leaned forward slightly. "Ellie," he said softly, "nos besamos." The admission hung in the air between us like an uninvited guest. A shiver ran down my spine at his words. The thrill of our shared secret was intoxicating yet terrifying. My heart raced as I recalled that fleeting moment, the warmth of his lips against mine and how it had awakened something dormant within me. But alongside that thrill was a gnawing sense of guilt that clawed at my insides. "You shouldn't have come here," I murmured, feeling a mix of excitement and fear swirling inside me. He looked at me intently, as if searching for something beyond my words. "But I wanted to see you," he replied quietly. As we sipped our coffee in silence, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this moment would change everything. My phone buzzed on the table, a reminder of my husband's absence and our predictable life together waiting outside this door. "Are you okay?" he asked suddenly, breaking through my thoughts. "You seem distant." I forced a smile but felt tears prick at my eyes. "It's just complicated," I admitted reluctantly. He reached out and brushed his fingers against mine briefly before pulling away as if afraid to cross another line. That simple touch sent warmth coursing through me again, a stark contrast to the chill of loneliness I'd felt for so long. "I understand," he said softly, leaning back in his chair with an air of resignation that made my heart ache more than it should have. The conversation drifted toward mundane topics, our favorite books and movies, but beneath it all lay an undercurrent of unspoken feelings that threatened to drown us both if we weren't careful. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, we both glanced toward the door simultaneously as if expecting someone to walk in at any moment, someone who would shatter this fragile bubble we'd created around ourselves. "I should go," he finally said reluctantly, standing up slowly as though every movement pained him. "But can we talk again?" My heart raced at his words. Part of me wanted desperately to say yes while another part screamed for caution. "I don't know," I replied honestly, feeling torn between fear and longing. He stepped closer again, our eyes locked for a brief moment filled with unspoken promises before he turned away toward the door. As he left, I felt an emptiness settle heavily around me, a void left by his absence that echoed louder than any silence ever could. The door remained ajar behind him as if inviting me into unknown territory where choices were made every day without hesitation or doubt. Once alone again, I sank onto my couch and buried my face in my hands, guilt gnawing at me relentlessly while excitement bubbled just beneath its surface like a hidden spring waiting for release. What had begun as an innocent encounter over sugar had spiraled into something far more complex than I'd ever anticipated, a dance on the edge of danger where every step could lead either to liberation or destruction. The evening deepened outside as shadows lengthened across familiar walls once filled with laughter now echoing only secrets whispered behind closed doors. My heart battling between love lost and newfound desire ignited by one stolen kiss that changed everything forevermore. In that quiet space filled only with echoes and uncertainty lingering thickly in the air around me, I realized there was no turning back now. Whatever path lay ahead would demand courage beyond what I thought possible. Just then, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my husband asking when he'd be home from his trip. My pulse quickened at its arrival. Reality crashed down upon me like waves against jagged rocks, a reminder of what awaited beyond this unlocked door leading into uncharted territory where choices had already begun unfolding without restraint or remorse. I hesitated, staring at the screen as the words blurred together. My husband's message felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. I could almost hear his voice, steady and reassuring, but the warmth of it clashed with the lingering thrill of my neighbor's kiss. "When will you be home?" I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly. It felt like a betrayal, yet I craved that connection, even if it was just through a screen. The door was still ajar, and I found myself glancing toward it as if expecting him to appear again. My heart raced at the thought. The mundane rhythm of my life had been disrupted, and I couldn't help but look for his car parked outside. Each time I passed the window, my heart leaped in anticipation. Would he come? Would we kiss again? I shook my head to clear those thoughts. Guilt washed over me like a cold shower. "I can't," I whispered to myself, trying to convince my reflection in the window that this was just a fleeting moment of weakness. But every glance outside only fueled my curiosity and desire for something more than what I had. Then came a flash of movement. A familiar silhouette crossing the street toward his house caught my eye. Our gazes locked for an instant before he turned away, but that brief connection sent shivers down my spine. In that moment, it felt as if our unspoken bond deepened further. We were both trapped in our lonely worlds yet seeking solace in one another. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from my husband. The sound startled me out of my reverie. Panic set in as I realized how unprepared I was to face him right now. "Ellie?" His voice echoed in the quiet room, pulling me back into reality. "Hey." "Just relaxing," I replied too quickly, hoping he wouldn't sense the tension in my voice. "Everything okay?" he asked, concern lacing his words. "Of course," I assured him while glancing back at the door that still beckoned with possibility. "I'll be home tomorrow evening," he said casually, but something about his tone made me uneasy. "Can't wait to see you." "Me too," I said softly as dread settled in my stomach like a heavy stone. The thought of facing him after this whirlwind of emotions felt suffocating. After hanging up, I paced around the living room aimlessly. My mind raced with conflicting thoughts about love and loyalty while contemplating what this all meant for me moving forward. The next day dragged on painfully slow until evening finally arrived. As twilight crept into the sky painting everything in soft hues of orange and purple, I found myself standing by the window again, hoping for just one more glimpse of him before reality settled back into its predictable routine. And then it happened. His car pulled up outside. My breath caught in my throat as excitement surged through me like electricity. However, guilt quickly followed behind like an unwelcome shadow reminding me who truly belonged beside me tonight. With each step he took toward his door across the street from mine, memories flooded back, the laughter shared over coffee and that fleeting moment when nuestros labios se encontraron under an unguarded sky filled with stars. But just as quickly as those memories surfaced, they were overshadowed by anxiety over what lay ahead, a decision looming larger than life itself, and suddenly all those feelings churned within me until they became unbearable. As darkness enveloped our neighborhood and lights flickered on one by one around us, each illuminating lives entwined with their own stories, I knew something had to change before morning brought inevitable consequences that would alter everything forever. The storm raged outside, rain pounding against the windows like a persistent reminder of my turmoil. I stood in the dim light of my living room, heart racing, as I waited for him to arrive. The thrill of anticipation mingled with the dread of what we might unleash. I had made my decision. I would see him again. When he knocked, it felt like the universe itself had conspired to bring us together. I opened the door, and his familiar smile brought warmth amidst the chaos. "I wasn't sure you'd want to," he said, stepping inside as a gust of wind howled behind him. The door clicked shut, sealing us in a world apart from reality. We settled on the couch, the air thick with unspoken words. As thunder rumbled in the distance, he leaned closer. "It's just us now," he whispered, and I could feel the electric tension between us. The storm outside mirrored my emotions, wild and unpredictable. I was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder shook the house, and we both jumped. In that moment of chaos, our eyes locked, and without thinking, our lips met again, a soft kiss that ignited everything inside me once more. My heart raced as we kissed. It felt like an escape from everything that held me back. Just as quickly as it began, reality crashed back in when the lights flickered and then went out completely. We were plunged into darkness, leaving only the sound of rain and our heavy breaths filling the silence. My instincts screamed at me to pull away, but instead, I found comfort in his presence, an anchor amidst my storm. "Ellie," he called softly into the darkness. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I replied quickly, though uncertainty swirled within me. "Maybe we should talk about this?" His voice was steady but laced with concern. I hesitated. Talking meant confronting what this all meant for both of us, what it could mean for my marriage. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked cautiously. "Us," he said simply. In that moment of vulnerability and intimacy that only darkness can provide, we shared our fears and longings. He spoke about his loneliness while I revealed how trapped I felt in my own life, a life filled with routine and obligation but lacking genuine connection. As we spent time together in that darkened room, everything around us faded away, the outside world ceased to exist for those precious moments. We passed hours talking about dreams unfulfilled and hopes long buried until exhaustion took over. Eventually, sleep claimed us on that couch, two souls seeking solace from their respective storms. In those quiet hours together, we passed the night intertwined, not just physically but emotionally too, as if our hearts had finally found a way to connect beyond mere words. When morning light crept through the curtains, illuminating our surroundings once more, reality came crashing back with its harsh clarity. The warmth faded as confusion settled in. What had happened during those hours? I awoke first and quietly slipped away from him. Every step felt heavy with guilt yet filled with exhilaration at having shared something so profound with someone who understood me in ways no one else did. As I stood by the window watching raindrops race down the glass pane, a metaphor for fleeting moments, I realized this couldn't continue without consequences looming on the horizon like dark clouds threatening another storm. He stirred behind me. His voice was low as he asked softly if everything was all right between us now that morning had come. "It's complicated," I admitted without turning around to face him fully yet knowing deep down how true those words were. "I understand," he replied gently but firmly. There was an unspoken agreement hanging between us, a fragile thread woven from shared secrets and newfound intimacy that could easily snap under pressure if not handled delicately. The weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on me as I turned away from him toward my own reflection in a nearby mirror, a woman caught between two worlds, one filled with expectations and duty while another promised excitement yet uncertainty at every turn. With each passing second ticking away mercilessly toward an inevitable decision point looming ahead like an approaching train, I knew something had to give before long or risk losing everything altogether. The silence in the room was deafening after he left. I stood frozen, staring at my reflection, feeling a mix of exhilaration and dread. The kiss had ignited something within me, but it also raised questions I wasn't ready to answer. My heart raced, and I could still feel the warmth of his lips on mine. It was intoxicating yet terrifying. I wandered into the kitchen, seeking solace in the familiar routine of brewing coffee. The rich aroma filled the air, but but it did little to calm my racing thoughts. As I poured the steaming liquid into my favorite mug, my eyes caught sight of an old envelope peeking out from under a pile of mail on the counter. It was addressed to me, in my husband's handwriting. Curiosity overcame me. I opened it slowly, revealing a love letter from years ago, a time when our connection felt stronger, more vibrant. As I read his words, nostalgia washed over me, but so did a pang of sorrow for what had faded between us. "I miss you," he had written, "and I promised to make more time for us." The irony stung sharply now that he was away so often. Just then, a knock at the door jolted me back to reality. My heart skipped a beat as I approached cautiously. It was him, my neighbor again. His expression mirrored my own confusion and longing as he stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he admitted softly, his eyes searching mine for answers. "I feel so lonely too." His vulnerability struck a chord within me. We were both trapped in our own worlds of isolation. "Why do we keep doing this?" I asked, feeling the weight of my choices pressing down on me even more now. He took a step closer, and for a moment, it felt like we were suspended in time, two souls seeking connection amidst chaos. "I don't know," he replied earnestly. "But it feels real." His honesty ignited something deep within me, a flicker of hope mixed with fear that this could spiral out of control. Before I could respond further, he reached for my hand gently and squeezed it reassuringly. "Let's meet later this week." "Just to talk?" The invitation hung in the air like an unspoken promise between us. I hesitated but nodded slowly. "Okay," I whispered reluctantly. Part of me wanted to run away from this situation while another part craved the connection he offered. As he left, uncertainty settled heavily on my chest again. Was this path leading toward liberation or destruction? The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed through my mind. Later that evening, as twilight descended outside my window casting shadows across the room, I sat alone with my thoughts swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gusty wind. The letter lay open beside me, a reminder of what once was and what might never be again if things continued down this path. Could I really meet him again? What would that mean for my marriage? My husband's absence felt like an ever-present void, yet here was someone who seemed to fill that space with understanding and warmth, even if just temporarily. That night turned into restless hours spent tossing and turning in bed alone while contemplating every possible outcome, the thrill mingling dangerously with guilt as sleep eluded me completely. The next few days passed slowly. Each tick of the clock felt amplified as anticipation built within me like pressure building before a storm. When Friday finally arrived, a day marked on both our calendars, I found myself standing before the mirror once more trying to prepare myself for whatever awaited ahead. Dressed casually yet carefully chosen for our meeting at Ellie's favorite cafe, the one nestled on Main Street known for its cozy atmosphere, I felt both excitement and dread coil tightly in my stomach as I stepped outside into cool evening air filled with scents of freshly baked pastries wafting from nearby windows. Seated at a table near the window overlooking bustling streets below where laughter echoed among friends gathering after work hours, I spotted him walking towards me with that familiar smile lighting up his face, instantly calming some nerves within while igniting others anew. "Hey," he said warmly as he slid into his seat across from mine, effortlessly breaking any lingering tension hanging between us moments before arriving here together. "Hi," I managed back softly, taking a sip from my coffee nervously while wondering how long this fragile moment could last without shattering completely under pressure surrounding us both right now, each one aware that boundaries had already blurred beyond recognition since our first encounter days prior. As we chatted about mundane topics, the weather turning cooler or upcoming neighborhood events, I found myself drawn into deeper conversations revealing shared dreams and fears we hadn't dared express before today's meeting, each revelation peeling back layers revealing vulnerabilities hidden beneath surface smiles exchanged previously over casual pleasantries shared between neighbors living side by side yet feeling worlds apart until now. Then suddenly there it was, the question hanging uncomfortably between us like an elephant in the room waiting patiently until someone dared speak up first. What happens next? His gaze met mine intensely, reflecting uncertainty mirrored back toward him, neither one knowing precisely how far either would go or if either should dare venture further down this path paved with risks yet tantalizing possibilities waiting just beyond reach. Before either could respond fully though, a familiar car pulled up outside, catching both our attention, abruptly interrupting whatever moment we'd begun sharing just moments earlier. My heart raced as recognition dawned upon seeing its driver, my husband, returning home unexpectedly early after all. I felt a rush of panic wash over me as I glanced at my neighbor. His expression mirrored my own, a mix of surprise and dread. The warmth of our conversation evaporated, replaced by the cold reality of the situation. I quickly pulled away, creating distance between us, as if that could somehow shield us from the impending consequences. "What do we do?" he whispered, urgency in his voice. The question hung heavy in the air, a reminder of the fragile line we had been walking. I couldn't answer him. My mind raced with thoughts of my husband's arrival, the mundane reality of our lives crashing down around me. "I need to act normal," I finally replied, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my lips. I stepped towards the door, trying to regain composure. The sound of my husband's footsteps on the porch made my heart pound louder in my chest. I had to appear unbothered, as if nothing had changed in this brief moment that felt like an eternity. As I opened the door, I plastered on a cheerful expression. "Hey! You're back early." My husband smiled back, but there was something searching in his gaze. He noticed how my eyes flickered towards our neighbor before I quickly turned away. "Yeah, traffic was lighter than expected," he said casually, but I could sense his intuition at work. "What have you been up to?" His question felt loaded, as if he was probing for something more than just idle conversation. "Just some reading and cleaning," I replied, mentally kicking myself for sounding so mundane. The truth was that I had been lost in thoughts of what could be with my neighbor, dreams and desires that now felt like they were slipping through my fingers. My neighbor stood awkwardly beside me, shifting his weight from one foot to another. "I should head home," he said quietly, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment filled with unspoken words. I nodded slowly, feeling an ache of longing already beginning to form within me. "See you later," I managed to say as he turned and walked away. Watching him go felt like saying goodbye to a piece of myself that had awakened during those secret moments together. The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed in my heart. "Everything okay?" My husband's voice broke through my reverie as he stepped further inside our home. He looked around as if searching for clues about what had transpired while he was gone. "You seem distracted." "I'm fine," I replied too quickly, wishing desperately for a way to erase the tension from the air between us. We stood there in silence for a moment, both aware of the unspoken distance growing between us. As dinner preparations began, chopping vegetables and stirring sauces, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something fundamental had shifted within me during those stolen moments with my neighbor. Our conversations had revealed layers of vulnerability and connection that were absent from my marriage. After dinner, we settled into our usual routine, watching television together while sipping wine and pretending everything was normal. Yet every laugh shared felt forced, every touch seemed fraught with unsaid words lingering just beneath the surface. "Did you smell something different when you came in?" My husband suddenly asked out of nowhere, breaking through my thoughts like a bolt from the blue. "What do you mean?" My stomach dropped at his question. It struck too close to home, the scent of another life lingering around me like an invisible shroud. "I don't know, maybe it's just me." He shrugged it off but continued to look at me closely as if trying to decode some hidden message written across my face. I shook my head slightly but felt guilt gnawing at me deeper than ever before, a reminder that despite wanting more from life than this predictable existence, there were still lines not meant to be crossed. Later that night, as we lay in bed next to each other, my husband peacefully asleep, I stared up at the ceiling, lost in thought again. Memories flooded back, laughter shared over coffee cups with him, dreams whispered softly under starlit skies with someone else entirely different from this man beside me now. I couldn't deny it anymore. This conflict inside me wouldn't go away on its own. It demanded resolution one way or another before it consumed everything around us completely. The following days passed slowly yet painfully, each moment spent avoiding deeper conversations about our marriage only heightened underlying tensions simmering just beneath surface-level interactions between us both, until finally one evening after dinner when everything changed yet again. I heard a knock at our door while washing dishes. The sound jolted me out of thought immediately, glancing over at my husband who sat engrossed in his newspaper nearby without any awareness whatsoever. My heart raced anew as dread washed over me once more. Would it be him? Would fate intervene yet again? The familiar silhouette appeared through frosted glass, the very man who stirred emotions long buried deep inside. What would happen next? I stood frozen for a moment, caught between anticipation and fear. The door swung open, revealing my husband, Mark, his face lit by the soft glow of the hallway light. "Ellie, I'm home early," he said, his voice casual yet tinged with surprise. "Hi. I thought you'd be gone longer," I managed to reply, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my lips. The thrill of the neighbor's kiss lingered in my mind like a ghost, but I pushed it aside. Mark stepped inside, shaking off the cold from outside as he placed his bag on the floor. "Traffic was lighter than expected," he continued, moving toward the kitchen. "What have you been up to?" His back was turned to me as he opened the fridge. I glanced at the clock. It had only been hours since I'd shared something intimate with another man. "Just some cleaning and reading," I said quickly, hoping he wouldn't notice how distant my voice sounded. He turned around, holding a bottle of water and raising an eyebrow. "You know, you seem a bit off today," he remarked, concern flickering across his features. "Is everything all right?" My heart sank at his words. How could I explain this whirlwind of emotions without unraveling everything? "Of course. Just tired," I replied too quickly. The scent of his cologne filled the air, a familiar comfort that suddenly felt suffocating. He nodded but studied me closely as if trying to read my thoughts. As we settled into our evening routine, Mark flipped through channels on television while I busied myself with dinner preparations. The mundane sounds of clattering pots and sizzling pans filled the silence between us, yet it felt heavier than usual. My mind wandered to my neighbor's warm smile and the shared moments that now seemed so vivid compared to this sterile domesticity. Suddenly, Mark paused mid-channel surf and asked casually, "What's that scent?" "Something different." My stomach twisted at his question. It was a reminder of an intimacy that was no longer just mine alone. "I don't know," I replied too quickly again. "Maybe something from the store?" I hoped he would drop it, but he didn't. "It's nice, but not like your usual stuff." He walked closer to me and inhaled deeply as if trying to catch a lingering trace of something more than just soap or cooking spices. My heart raced again, this time out of panic rather than excitement. "Really? Must be some new detergent or something." I laughed nervously while stirring pasta in boiling water. He seemed unconvinced but moved back to the couch without pressing further. Dinner was quiet. We exchanged polite conversation about work and mundane events in our lives while my mind kept drifting back to what lay outside these walls, the thrill of secrecy and desire that had ignited within me only days ago. After dinner, as we cleaned up together in silence, Mark turned on some music. Soft jazz playing in the background felt oddly comforting yet unsettling at once. The melodies reminded me of lazy afternoons spent daydreaming about love rather than living it. "I've been thinking," Mark began hesitantly as we dried dishes side by side. "Maybe we should plan a weekend getaway soon? Just us." His suggestion struck me like lightning. How could he not see what was happening beneath our roof? That sounds nice, I said with forced enthusiasm while feeling trapped between two worlds, one filled with comfort and predictability and another pulsing with uncharted possibilities. Later that night, after settling into bed beside him under dim light filtering through curtains, sleep eluded me as thoughts spiraled wildly in my mind. How could I continue this charade when part of me longed for adventure beyond these walls? I turned over to face him. Even in sleep, he looked peaceful, yet so distant from who I craved connection with now. As dawn broke softly through our window panes, illuminating our room in shades of gold and warmth, guilt washed over me anew like a tidal wave crashing against rocks. The next day brought more uncertainty as my phone buzzed unexpectedly during breakfast, a text from my neighbor, "Can we talk later?" My heart raced at those simple words. They held promise yet also danger wrapped tightly around them. "What's wrong?" Mark asked suddenly from across the table as he noticed my sudden stillness while staring at my phone screen like it held all answers to life's questions. "Nothing," I replied too sharply before softening my tone slightly. "Just work stuff." He looked skeptical but returned to finishing his coffee while tension hung thickly in the air between us. As soon as Mark left for work that morning, relief flooded over me, followed closely by guilt once more. I couldn't deny how much I wanted to meet him again despite knowing full well where this path might lead us both. The doorbell rang just before noon. It startled me out of my thoughts entirely. Who could it be? Peeking through the peephole revealed only shadows outside. Curiosity tugged at me until finally giving way. I opened up reluctantly, expecting perhaps another neighbor asking for sugar or borrowing tools again. Instead stood my neighbor with an earnest look on his face that sent butterflies fluttering wildly within me once more. How could someone so ordinary feel so extraordinary all at once? "I needed to see you," he said simply before stepping inside without waiting for an invitation, a move both bold yet familiar somehow amidst all this chaos swirling around us both now. "I needed to see you," he said simply before stepping inside without waiting for an invitation, a move both bold yet familiar somehow amidst all this chaos swirling around us both now. I felt the warmth of his presence envelop me, and a part of me wanted to retreat, to shut the door on this unexpected connection. Yet, there I stood, frozen in place. "What about your wife?" The question slipped out before I could catch it. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he held my gaze. "She doesn't understand me like you do." His voice was low, almost a whisper. The weight of his words hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken truths. I could feel my heart racing, caught between the thrill of his confession and the reality of my own life. As we stood there, an awkward silence filled the space, punctuated only by the distant sound of cars passing outside. I glanced at the clock on the wall. My husband would be home soon. Panic surged through me at the thought of being caught in such a vulnerable moment. "Ellie," he said softly, breaking the silence. "I just want to talk." I nodded slowly, torn between desire and duty. How could I explain this feeling that had blossomed so unexpectedly? The door remained ajar behind him, a symbol of everything that had changed in my life since our first kiss. We moved to the living room, where sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating our surroundings with a warm glow. I tried to focus on mundane topics, work, weather, but it felt forced and hollow. Each word was a reminder of what lay beneath our surface conversation. Then came a text alert from my phone, a message from him. My heart sank as I glanced at it, thinking about you. It felt like an electric jolt coursing through me. My fingers hovered over the screen as I hesitated to respond. "Who is it?" he asked casually, but his tone betrayed curiosity. "It's just someone from work." I quickly dismissed it and turned my attention back to him. But deep down, I knew that wasn't entirely true anymore. We resumed small talk until frustration crept into our conversation over trivial matters: who forgot to take out the trash last week or why he never seemed to have time for dinner together anymore. Each word felt like a chasm growing wider between us. Why are we arguing about this? I finally snapped, feeling exasperated by our lack of communication. Because you're not here with me. His voice rose slightly before he took a breath and calmed himself down again. You're somewhere else. The truth stung as it settled in. He was right. My thoughts were often consumed by my neighbor and what might unfold between us if given half a chance. Just then, another message pinged on my phone, this time from my neighbor. Can we talk later? My heart raced again as conflicting emotions swirled within me. Should I respond? What would that mean? I need some air, I blurted out suddenly and moved toward the door leading outside onto the porch without waiting for his reply. He followed closely behind me as we stepped into the cool evening air filled with scents from blooming flowers nearby. The world outside felt alive while my heart pounded against its cage inside me. Ellie, he called softly as if sensing my internal struggle deepening with each passing moment. I don't know what to do anymore, I admitted finally after taking a deep breath to steady myself against this turmoil swirling inside me like leaves caught in a storm. You have options, he replied gently as if trying to reassure me that all wasn't lost despite how tangled everything seemed right now. But just then came another sound, the unmistakable rumble of tires on gravel announcing my husband's return home early from work. A wave of panic washed over me. How would I explain this? I need to go back inside, I stammered awkwardly while turning toward him one last time before retreating into safety once more. As we entered back into familiar territory, the warmth surrounding us now felt suffocating, a knot formed in my stomach knowing full well that everything had changed yet again without any clear resolution ahead for either one of us involved here tonight. The neighborhood event buzzed with laughter and chatter, but inside, I felt a dissonance. My husband mingled with old friends, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. I stood at the edge of the gathering, watching people dance under the string lights, their joy starkly contrasting my internal turmoil. As I scanned the crowd, my gaze landed on my neighbor. He was laughing with a group of our mutual acquaintances, and for a moment, our eyes locked. A rush of warmth washed over me as he approached. You look beautiful tonight, he said softly, a sincere smile lighting up his face. The compliment sent a thrill through me that I tried to suppress. We stepped away from the crowd, finding solace in a quieter corner of the yard. The music faded into background noise as we began to talk about trivial matters, weather, local events, but there was an unspoken tension lingering between us. Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions? I asked, surprising myself with my honesty. He nodded thoughtfully. Every day, he replied quietly. But it's nice to escape for a little while. His words hung in the air like an invitation. Just then, an acquaintance from across the yard called out to us. You two have great chemistry. You should dance. My heart raced at the suggestion. Before I could respond, he took my hand and led me toward the makeshift dance floor. We moved closer together as we swayed to the music, feeling each other's warmth radiating against our bodies. For those few moments, I forgot about everything else. The mundane reality of my life and my husband's absence felt miles away. Then it happened. As we twirled under the stars, I heard something clink and fall at my feet. Looking down in horror, I realized it was my husband's bracelet, one he had given me years ago for our anniversary. My heart sank as I picked it up and felt its weight in my palm. I can't believe this, I whispered to myself. What's wrong? He asked with concern etched on his face. It's nothing, I replied too quickly. But deep down, it felt like everything was unraveling before me. The bracelet represented stability, a tether to my life that was slowly slipping away. As we danced again after that incident, an uneasy silence settled between us. The thrill had dimmed, now there was only uncertainty hanging in the air like fog over a lake at dawn. My mind raced with thoughts of what this meant for us, the deeper implications of our connection beyond mere attraction. Ellie, he said softly as we stepped back from each other momentarily, we can't ignore what's happening here. His eyes searched mine for understanding. I know, I admitted reluctantly while glancing back toward where my husband stood talking animatedly with others nearby. The contrast between our lives felt more pronounced than ever before, the laughter around us versus the silent questions in my heart. Just then, my husband caught sight of us and made his way over with a smile plastered on his face. "Hey! What are you two up to?" he called out cheerfully. "Just chatting," I said quickly while trying to mask any hint of tension in my voice. "Well, don't keep her all to yourself," he joked lightly before turning back to engage with others again. I watched him walk away and felt a pang of guilt wash over me. How could I be standing here dancing with another man while he believed everything was fine? Yet part of me craved this connection so deeply that it overshadowed any feelings of remorse momentarily. The night wore on, laughter echoed around us as people continued to dance and socialize under twinkling lights above their heads, a scene filled with joy that seemed so far removed from what lay within me now, confusion mixed with exhilaration about where this path might lead next. As we parted ways for just a moment amid all this chaos around us, my neighbor leaned closer once more before stepping back slightly again. "Let's not pretend this isn't important." "I can't just walk away from everything," I whispered back desperately while glancing around nervously once more, my heart racing faster than ever before at what lay ahead yet feeling tethered still by obligations unfulfilled too long already. The night ended without resolution, instead leaving behind lingering questions swirling through every corner of my mind while shadows danced upon walls illuminated only by flickering candlelight nearby. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across the room. I sat up slowly, still wrapped in the remnants of last night's turmoil. The weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest as I recalled the neighbor's proposal. A getaway? How could I even consider it? I heard a soft knock at the door, sending a jolt through me. My heart raced as I wondered if it was him again. I took a deep breath and opened it cautiously. It was just the mailman, delivering letters and packages that felt like reminders of my everyday life. "Morning, Ellie." "Just your usual," he said with a friendly smile, oblivious to my inner chaos. "Thanks," I replied, taking the mail without really looking at it. As I closed the door, I felt an urge to reach out to my neighbor again. What if this was my chance to escape the monotony? But then guilt washed over me like a cold wave. Was I truly ready to leave everything behind? Later that day, while sitting in my favorite cafe down the street, I glanced at my phone. A message from him blinked on the screen. "Can we talk? Meet me at the park?" My pulse quickened as excitement mixed with dread. What did he want? Was this about our last conversation or something more? I hesitated but ultimately decided to go. The park was alive with children playing and couples strolling hand in hand. It felt foreign to me now, so vibrant and full of life compared to my own existence at home. As I approached our usual bench by the pond, he was already waiting for me, looking hopeful yet anxious. "Ellie," he began as soon as I sat down, "I know this is complicated." His eyes searched mine for understanding. "But what if we took that trip? Just you and me." "I can't just leave everything behind," I replied sharply, feeling defensive yet drawn to his idea. "Why not?" he pressed gently. "You deserve happiness too." His words hung in the air between us like an unspoken truth. As we talked about our lives, his loneliness mirroring mine, I felt something shift within me. The thought of escaping seemed both thrilling and terrifying. Could I really abandon my responsibilities for this uncertain path? Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, a call from my husband. Panic surged through me as I glanced at the screen. What would he say if he knew where I was? "I have to take this," I said abruptly. "Ellie?" My husband's voice sounded distant but familiar over the line. "I'm coming home early." My heart dropped into my stomach. Home early? I echoed weakly, glancing back at my neighbor who looked equally alarmed. Yes, he continued without pause. We need to talk about us. His words felt heavy with implications. I'll be home soon, I managed to say before hanging up quickly, feeling trapped between two worlds once more. What now? My neighbor asked softly. I don't know, I admitted, fear creeping in again. He reached out and squeezed my hand gently but firmly. You need to decide what you want before it's too late. As we sat there in silence, contemplating our next steps, reality crashed down around us like thunder on a stormy night. The weight of choices loomed large over everything we had shared so far. Then came another unexpected twist. A familiar car pulled up near us, a friend from our neighborhood who often stopped by for coffee or community events. They waved cheerfully as they strolled toward us. My heart sank further. They would surely sense something amiss if they saw us together here. What do we do? I whispered urgently to him. He looked conflicted but resolute when he replied, we can't let them see us like this. In that moment of panic, clarity struck me hard, either face the truth about what was happening between us or retreat back into silence in conformity with my husband's predictable life. As our friend approached closer with a curious smile on their face, time seemed suspended between decisions that could change everything forever. My heart raced wildly while uncertainty loomed ahead like an uncharted path waiting for me.